Welcome back to Switch to Linux, and today we are continuing our discussion of desktop environments, and we are on today to Mate. Haha, I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. So this is pronounced Mate or Mate, depending on dialects and whatever else. It's just not pronounced mate. It comes from the Spanish herb, I believe it's Spanish, yerba mate. And this desktop came from the fact that Gnome 2 was the most popular desktop. And when they dropped the way they were running and then switched over to the Gnome shell in Gnome 3, it caused a big outrage among a lot of users. Ubuntu dropped Gnome and built the Unity. Cinnamon, Linux Mint developed Cinnamon to continue a similar format. We'll talk about that one another day. That one's actually forked from Gnome 3 instead of Gnome 2. But Mate forked itself from Gnome 2, starting with an Arch user from Argentina who did not like the transition at all and wanted to maintain and just modernize the UI interfaces in Gnome 2. But it developed the name Mate because we did not want to say Gnome 2, Gnome 3, so he came up with this extra name, which was unofficially adopted by many of the users in the community as the Mate Advanced Traditional Environment. Although that's never been an official naming convention, but hey, it matches all of the other acronyms that you find all throughout the Linux world and the Unix-like world and the desktop environment world. So hey, let's run with it. This was originally released in August 2011 after only an impressive 2 months after the release date. Maybe it was 3 months. I don't know. I think it was, June. It was announced in 2011, and then it was officially released in August 2011. Originally, it was created for Arch. So, needless to say, Arch was the first of the Linux systems to maintain this in their package repositories, although now it is supported primarily by Ubuntu Mate, courtesy of Martin Windpress, and also the Linux Mint Mate team. So those are the two biggest people who work on, develop, and maintain Mate, which, despite having the older functions, older layouts, older features, does have some modernity brought into it, although it is still lacking some of that. So you're not going to get Wayland working with it at this point in time. They've just added high DPI support, and there's a few other things that are still odds and ends. So I'm not sure how well a touchscreen is going to work on it and things like that. But, you don't have your online accounts, basically things like this. But for those people that want to have a highly and easily customizable desktop that follows the more traditional means, the Mate desktop is definitely a big choice. Now, as of the recent versions, it does support the full GTK3. The latest version saw an update of the backend programs from Python 2 to Python 3. So it has every bit of modern security and functionality. It just maintains a lot of the older UI and the older elements. And that leads to some people will say that it doesn't look quite as good as some of the other modern desktops because of that. Even though you can change some of the things in the themings, still a lot of the theming that you get with Mate do still make it look a little bit dated. It depends if that's really a concern of yours or not. Of course, if you have the know-how to go into the config files and do some CSS styling, you can probably change some of those things around as well. All of that being said, though, it does have a little bit of an older look, but that is at a point some of its absolute elegance. Now, as far as where you're going to get this is one of the most popular and core desktops, meaning it is available pretty much officially on pretty much everything. Coming first from the Arch world, any Arch distribution has the Mate packages inside of it natively. You can also choose it from Debian. Of course, we have the Linux Mint and the Ubuntu Mate team, who we said are primarily the primary developers and primary supporters of the applications right now. And this group here, you can get this thing anywhere. Official forms in Manjaro, official in Fedora, it's everywhere. So you can use it pretty much everywhere. But there's not a single there's not a single distro that Mate was specifically built for. It's not like Linux Mint who built Cinnamon or Solus who built Budgie, but it is something that is available in the repositories for all of your different distributions. Even when you leave the Linux world, go into the more Unixy or BSD worlds, you can still find Mate over there as well. So it is one of these desktops that is just absolutely universal. It's absolutely everywhere. It does have a high degree of customizability. I find that at times it's not quite as well organized as Plasma, believe it or not. So I do sometimes get lost in the settings panels in that, but that's possibly because I've spent a lot more time in Plasma and a lot less time in Mate. I personally have experienced that I don't find it to be as stable as some of the other desktop environments. But that's my opinion, and I have not used it on nearly as many systems as many other people do. So that might just be something related to the hardware that I've been testing it on, which admittedly I've only tested that particular desktop environment on one computer hardware. So I'm not really ready to say it's not stable, just because of the way and experiences that I have had. Now, all of these being said, you can get this about everywhere. It has a lot of features, functionalities inside of it. It is also a super lightweight system. It is in competition with XFCE for a super lightweight Linux distribution. So your overall pros of Mate, we have a very traditional layout. If you're looking for a traditional Windows type layout, Mate absolutely has that. It is backed by some very stable groups, so it is not about to disappear anytime soon. Of course, the Arch community's all over it, the Ubuntu team's all over it, the Linux Mint team's all over it. Yeah, there's kind of like your top 3 groups. So Mate is not going anywhere, and it is super lightweight. As far as other desktop environments, anything in the Gnome 3 branch, including Gnome 3 and Cinnamon and Budgie, are going to be a little bit heavier on the system. Even if they bring the RAM numbers down, I still at times find it to be a little bit more sluggish. Mate just moves like the old Windows 95 moves. And we're not talking blue screens of death. We're talking actual, real functionality. You click a button and it launches. It just moves pretty quickly. So that is a major advantage. And it does have a lot of those customizations in it. My apologies. So what are the cons? This is interesting because I wrote down 2. I try and do like 3 pros, 3 cons in these videos. I wrote down 2. And I said one of those is it does lack some of the modern features. So if you're going to use online accounts, you can install the current GNOME online accounts tools. It won't display in the settings, but you can kind of force it to. There's ways to hack itself into there, but there's no out-of-the-box support for it like you get on anything based on GNOME 3 or that you can get on Plasma as well. So we're talking online accounts. It does not have Wayland support at the time I'm doing this video, although that's in the plan to move forward. So we do lack some of those modern features. And the second con, which may be a pro, maybe a con, who knows, is it does actually look a little bit dated. Even when you get some of the good themes on it, it still does look a little bit more dated of a system. I was like, I couldn't find other cons, so I did some internet searching, and I couldn't find most other people didn't find some either. And they're like, the one of them had all these pros, all these cons for all these different things. Under Mate, he says, couldn't think of any. Let me know in the comments down below. So I scroll down to the comments, so there's nobody's leaving any comments. So I don't know. So maybe it is one of the best ones. It's not my overall favorite, but that's my subjective opinion. Overall, I use it on one of my computer systems, but again, nearly every time I'm using it to try and interface with my networks and stuff, I do get some system crashes in it, mostly with Kaja file manager crashes, nothing major, but that's been my experience on it and why I haven't really used it in a lot of other things. But overall, I would say it is a great desktop. It has a reputation of being one of the most stable, one of the most feature-rich, and one of the most customizable desktops. So definitely have a look at Mate. So thanks for coming along on this video on Switch to Linux. Let me know your thoughts and your comments down below.